In the crucible of the war between the states, historians say, modern America was forged. The heat and the pain of it were terrible. Yet now, battle by battle, weekend after weekend, that war is re-fought. For thousands of Americans, it's become a mass obsession. For some, especially in the South, these mock conflicts keep the old cause and the old enmity alive.
What we were after then is a lot of what you fight for today. Same thing, states' rights, individual freedoms. And it's still you fight for today at the ballot box. Back then they took it to the field.
But for the true reenactor, the pursuit of accuracy, the passion for reconstructing the past, has become an end in itself.
You're on a quest, and you're trying to reach a goal which you'll never attain. You know, you don't have to get into the political things. I mean, I didn't live then, so who am I to judge about things? You know, I just look at it as as an observer and think it's a neat subject.
On the Beltway around Cincinnati, Ohio, it's 7 o'clock on an August morning in 1999. In the quiet haven of Sharon Woods Park, it's September of 1862. For a company of the 4th Arkansas Regiment of the Army of the Confederate States of America, it's time for another day of scouting behind enemy lines. If they look ragged and dirty and ill-disciplined, it's because they intend to. In fact, this little company is an elite. Each member is here by invitation only.
Attention, company!
The essential qualification? A fanatical attention to every detail of dress and equipment, from the soles of their boots, if they have them, to the sweatbands inside their hats.
Attention to roll call. Corporal Postlethwaite. Here. Corporal Hill. Here.
No one has pursued the grail of authenticity with more intensity than Rob Hodge. He's been at it for 17 years.
I mean, this is all, cottage industry stuff. This is a beaver fur felt hat based on an original that was made by a guy named A.J. Delschmutt, Frederick, Maryland. And you can find business records at the National Archives on this guy. And these are sumac trousers. Buddy of mine in North Carolina made them. These are based on originals at the Museum of the Confederacy. And this is a standard Confederate infantry shell jacket, and this one was made for Western Confederate soldiers in Columbus, Georgia. Very common hub of clothing at the time. Let's see, these are Jefferson booties or brogans, standard Federal shoe, and of course Confederates would be wearing a lot of captured Federal gear. Shoes would wear it out in about 2 weeks on campaign. So, yeah, I did a 50-mile march in Louisiana this spring, and I wore them down pretty good.
For the living historians representing the 4th Arkansas this weekend, it all has to be right. Uniforms of the right cloth, dyed with the right dye, buttoned with the right buttons. The right muskets and blankets, canteens and haversacks. Above all, the right attitude.
It's being as close to the original soldiers as humanly possible. And if that means sleeping out in the rain without tents, bivouacking in the woods at night, then, we do that a lot. A lot of us here have slept in the rain. And I figure if a person can't do that, can't choose to portray a Civil War soldier, if you're going to choose to get into this and can't do that for 3 days, then you don't have no business being out here,
Fire! 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 Rally by section!
The reenactors here are living historians, putting together their uniforms themselves by hand, doing the research.
By the right flank!
There's another test the true living historian must pass. Is he willing to turn out not just for the big battles with thousands of participants, but for a small weekend display in a corner of a northern state?
3 rounds! Load.
We're talking in rank.
The search for authenticity sometimes leads into perilous territory. Late at night, long after the public have left, the 4th Arkansas is entertained by a troupe of what in the 1860s they would have called nigger minstrels.
When she stuck her head out that window, she bumped that stick. Window came down on her neck and killed her dead. Wow.
White men with corked faces exchanging bad jokes in bad black accents.
Broke her neck and killed her again.
Oh, what a chapter of accident.
Oh.
In today's America, it would be considered worse than bad taste. In some places, it would cause a riot. But as the organizer of this weekend somewhat defensively points out, this is how the Confederate Army kept itself amused.
We're not trying to project any type of racist image or anything like that. I mean, that's not in our nature at all, but more or less just an accurate portrayal of history.
Amongst the thousands who like to dress up as Confederate soldiers, there undoubtedly are a few redneck racists left, but not many. The vast majority of reenactors on both sides have the kind of political innocence that you find in rabid enthusiasts of all kinds, from stamp collectors to computer geeks. But some, like Rob Hodge, have found that their passion for the Civil War and its battlefields have led them to engage in a very modern struggle, a glorious and perhaps doomed attempt to take on the 21st century itself.
What you have is James Longstreet's Confederate wing, 30,000 strong.
The battlefield of Manassas, scene of two separate Confederate victories. In places like this, and with a guide like Rob Hodge, you feel you can almost see and hear the bloody struggle that took place 137 years ago.
And so they begin swinging around, and just start rolling up the Federal line. Reinforcements come in for the Federals, and it's piecemeal, and they fight very well. And imagine the Federal piecemeal, reinforcements coming in, and they're coming in from this direction. And they come in and they attack nobly and die nobly and retreat. Probably not nobly, but...
Rob Hodge can put on the same impromptu performance at any one of 30 or 40 battlefields, from Chickamauga to Gettysburg.
So Longstreet's troops are coming up here, but they hit these guns. 6 guns from Lepian's main battery, and they're loaded with double canister, and they're ready to fire. And Alexander Hunter of the 17th Virginia talks about how these grim black mouths of the tubes, of these cannon barrels, he could see them, and they were loaded, and he knew what was going to happen next. He saw the lanyards taut on the guns, and he was praying that he wouldn't get hit.
And what happened then?
The discharge goes off. There's tons of carnage right out in front, about 10 paces out from the guns. Hunter, luckily, is unscathed.
Rob, the way you talk about it, this really is sacred ground for you, isn't it?
Yeah, there are cemeteries without headstones, and they are, in my mind, and hopefully in other minds, places worthy of being protected.
So far, this battlefield has been protected. It's a national park, created by the very federal government the South rebelled against. But it's only 40 kilometers west of Washington, D.C. And the suburban sprawl that's covering more and more of northern Virginia is crowding right up to the boundaries of the park. And to Rob's disgust, the narrow roads which meet in the heart of the battlefield have been allowed to become major commuter arteries. And now the park has agreed to widen the main intersection beside the famous stone house.
When you're looking at a map of the battlefield, this is smack dab in the middle. So the widening of the roads here is kind of the stake to drive into the heart of the battlefield. What is our legacy going to be? Is our legacy just going to be the convenience of getting from point A to point B, come hell or high water, and ruin the cultural significance of things that have happened to us that are monumental and important to understand? I'm hoping to change our legacy to be a generation of caring, and I don't see the caring with people speeding through this intersection. No reverence. All I'm asking is for some sort of questioning of it all. Let's think about these things.
The next weekend, Rob Hodge is back in battle again. It's the reenactment of the only Civil War battle to take place north of the Great Ohio River. On July the 19th, 1863, a brigade of Confederate raiders led by John Hunt Morgan was driven back by overwhelming Union forces. It's a small affair by reenactors' standards, and anyway, as Rob admits, after 17 years, the thrill of this kind of thing has begun to wear off.
No doubt what this is, it's an extension of adolescence. I mean, if you're going out on a field and you're shooting black powder to each other and aiming guns, what is that, you know? And I have to admit that it's not all that exciting for me anymore, at least that aspect.
This is the real reason Rob has come north again to Ohio. The Shelley Gravel Company has bought up a substantial chunk of the Buffington Island battlefield and intends to mine it for gravel to pave Ohio's roads. Leading the resistance is a stalwart of the local reenactors, Tony Tembage. Rebel and Yankee are allies in the preservation struggle.
And how many bodies are buried in the general area around here?
There could be 50 or more Confederate soldiers buried in this land.
It almost seems like developers are magnets to battlefields sometimes. You can get upset about it, and it is upsetting, but getting upset about it doesn't do anything. And, you know, I kind of like the approach of just trying to realize that's life, and you have to try to find a way to deal with it.
What do you think the soldiers who fought here would say if they knew that 120 years later a guy dressed in a Confederate uniform and a guy dressed in a Union uniform would be standing here together arguing about how to preserve this battlefield?
Well, I'd like to think that they would think it's neat, that they would think that somebody cares, somebody gives a damn about it.
Well, I think this is what they fought for, a free country where Americans could think and act as they wished. And
what your side fought for, anyway. Maybe.
Well, I think
probably both sides thought they were fighting for the same thing. Yeah, that's what
that might come as a surprise to some, especially to the descendants of the slaves that the war between the states set free. But many of these reenactors told me that reliving their old battles makes for reconciliation, not division.
Personally, without people realizing, I think this is all a big healing process of our country. The fact that we can do this, real Southerners, real Northerners getting together and doing this on you know, every time a battle's over, you see everybody shaking hands and exchanging numbers, and I think this is something that's good that's come out of something that was horrible.
Those who forget the past, they say, are doomed to repeat it. But with so many determined to remember, making war on each other is one tragedy Americans seem most unlikely to repeat.